guys! Today we'll be recapping a story called 10 Ways to Get Rejected by the Tyrant. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot. Enjoy! The narrative opens with a young woman pleading and declaring herself Scarlet Armen, the tyrant Carlior's fiancé. This is the setting of The Tyrant Private Life, a romance fantasy book. Emperor Carlior, the novel's protagonist, is a tyrant who engages in horrific deeds. The tyrant meets the female lead, falls in love with her, and changes into a very kind and submissive person toward her. His assistants conceal his personal life from prying eyes. While recalling the story, a young girl is squirming on her pillow. She thinks that if the tyrant becomes a tender person in the end, what is the point of all the killing? Given that the tyrant kills the girl in the middle of the novel, Scarlet considers it fortunate that she arrives before the major plot begins. Scarlet muses as she sits on the bed, saying she can survive if she doesn't harass the main female character. She doubts her ability to deal with the tyrant, though. At that moment, Scarlet understands the tyrant, who just experienced his first love, is a disaster. Throughout the era, the tyrant is the most knowledgeable and youthful swordmaster. Scarlet then starts to scribble down ideas on how to get away from the tyrant. Gaining the tyrant's sympathy is the first thing on her list. But things take a turn for the worst when she realizes that although he may be the wisest man alive, it's not because of his character. Instead, it's just because a select few are wiser than him. Scarlet suddenly remembers her family. She begins to rant about them being so cruel for engaging their only daughter to a tyrant. Scarlet even questions herself if they're her real family. Luckily, Scarlet still has the memories of the old Scarlet. She remembers that the Duke is very cold and ignores and slaps her. The memory of the family is not a supportive and happy one. She then decides to leave the Duke's family as soon as possible. But Scarlet still needs to handle her engagement with the tyrant since their first meeting will be at the Emperor's birthday banquet in 10 days, which also refers to the beginning of the storyline and Scarlet's downfall. Staring at the invitation, Scarlet tries to remember why she loves the tyrant and what she sees in him that she fell for him. She suddenly understands that she cannot run away and must end the engagement. Abruptly, she thinks of being dropped by the tyrant. She must persuade the tyrant to call off their engagement because the Emperor's engagement is sealed with a mystical contract. Scarlet, therefore, cheerfully devises the plan to appear insane to incite the tyrant's hatred against her. Then, the day of the banquet arrives. While Scarlet is preparing, she rants that it is too early to prepare since the banquet is still at night. Looking at the dresses, Scarlet notices a plain peach dress and instantly decides to wear it, which shocks the maid since she always picks a fancier dress. It looks like the plan is starting. The maid asks Scarlet, who is getting ready, whether she would want to accessorize her dress as it's too simple for the banquet at the Imperial Palace. But Scarlet responds that the dress is enough. As Scarlet descends the stairs, she hears the maids chatting about her simple dress choice, and some of them think it's crazy that she's wearing it. The peach color does not suit her, so she smiles and realizes that is the expected response. Scarlet thinks excitedly as she gets settled in the carriage, sure that this outfit will begin her supposed madness. She observes the cold surroundings and the Duke's glares as they begin their journey. Scarlet sees this and disregards her father, believing the Duke to be unworthy of his old daughter. Scarlet returns to her senses when Armen irritatingly asks her what is wrong with her today. Armen, Scarlet's half-brother in the original tale, is the only person who stands by her after she's given the death sentence. When Scarlet takes her life, Isar is the first to find and save her after entering Scarlet's body. As Scarlet looks at Isar, wondering if she should treat him differently, she innocently asks what is happening. Isar notices Scarlet's eerie expression and asks if it's because of her dress, in an obnoxious way. Scarlet confidently tells Isar that her dress perfectly suits her and that she is pretty no matter what she wears. Taken aback by her response, Isar tells Scarlet that the rumors that she became crazy sound true. The Duke then shouts at Scarlet and angrily asks if she's willing to disgrace the family. Thinking it's about the dress, Scarlet then acts sad and tells him that since the Duke tells her that she bought a lot of clothes the other day, this time Scarlet tries on a very modest dress. Scarlet accusingly points to Isar and tells him that if it's about the family prestige, they must focus on Isar since he came home drunk yesterday. Why snitch a friendly sibling? Scarlet glances at Isar and notices he is calm and not mad at her for snitching on him. When the Duke is again about to shout at Scarlet, Duchess Armen suddenly reprimands them and tells them to stop. The moment the former Duchess passed away, the Duke introduced Duchess Melia. Isar is older than Scarlet since, before their marriage, she was a romantic partner of the Duke, who abandoned her. Scarlet is disliked by Duchess Milia, who takes her ire out on her by punishing her frequently. Scarlet then tauntingly calls the Duchess Madam and tells her that her son is rumored to sing at the plaza when drunk. Not wanting to fight again, Scarlet pretends to sleep, but Isar shockingly looks at Scarlet when she instantly snores. Next, Scarlet wakes up from a weird dream and notices they arrive at the palace. When Scarlet asks the guard to unlock the gate, he responds that he can't because His Majesty is already inside. Scarlet gladly agrees. Scarlet is astounded by the opulence of the setting when she first arrives and thinks the Tyrant is defining this as a less formal birthday celebration than the previous emperor. Scarlet is satisfied that she got the people's attention negatively because of her dress and talks about her being crazy. While looking for the emperor, she notices a pretty handsome boy but realizes that it is not the emperor since he has blonde hair. The book describes the emperor as having silver hair with purple eyes. As Scarlet strolls around, she hears three women discussing the story of her going insane. Scarlet then approaches them, and upon realizing that the three women's hair does look like a traffic light, blurts out the phrase, "traffic light." One lady confusingly asks Lady Fleta what a traffic light is, but Lady Fleta only taunts Scarlet and tells her that the rumors are true since Scarlet is saying things that don't mean anything. Without backing down, Scarlet approaches Lady Fleta and threatens her if she wants to die. She warns her not to mess with her, thus making Lady Fleta's knees weak. Scarlet walks past them and notices that she's being sensitive. Scarlet observes that no one seems to be around her while she strolls, perhaps because her notoriety hasn't been revived in a month. The Tyrant's civility is what Scarlet falls for in the original novel, but maybe the most important reason is that, in the past, the Tyrant was what she needed and the only person who was polite to her. Scarlet finally sees the Emperor, and she then walks toward him. Upon arriving in front of the Emperor, she graciously greets and introduces herself. Scarlet stares at the Emperor and notices that the old Scarlet didn't only fall for his politeness, but also his face. While staring at the Emperor, she realizes how cool and handsome the Emperor is, making the surrounding people look like a water-tanned squid. The Emperor lazily asks Scarlet if she will show him something strange. She just better give up. Scarlet replies that since it is their first meeting as fiancés, she prepares something for him and asks the Emperor to look at it. Thus, the Emperor agrees to Scarlet. Hearing this, Scarlet happily thinks that her plan has succeeded and announces to everyone her magic trick. She exaggeratedly pours wine on her dress and announces it will turn dazzling red after greeting the Emperor with a happy birthday. Satisfied with her crazy act, Scarlet thinks her plan to break the engagement is successful. Seeing the Emperor's stunned reaction, she believes this may be a one-shot plan. I like Scarlet, she's cute and a psycho. Following the insane stunt performed by Scarlet, she wishes His Majesty a happy birthday while keeping in mind that he prefers not to be greeted. And suddenly, the Emperor's grim expression catches the attention of others. Having had enough of Scarlet, the Emperor calls Duke Armen and tells him that the lady's condition seems unwell. He advises him to see the state of things in his mansion. Duke Armen embarrassingly agrees to the Emperor and drags Scarlet away. While being dragged, Scarlet stares at the Emperor and sees the Emperor's handsome face. Scarlet noticed the Emperor looking at her. She then winked at the Emperor, which caught the Emperor off guard. On their ride home, Duke Armen angrily shouts at Scarlet for acting wildly in front of the Emperor. Not minding the Duke, Scarlet inwardly thinks that what she did would be a success. Isar then calls Scarlet's attention, saying that she looks and smells drunk. But Scarlet teasingly tells Isar that it's because she looks good in red too. Duchess Millar suddenly cuts in and says Scarlet will see a doctor to clear her head since what she did might break the engagement, and titles will not be excommunication. Hearing this, Scarlet again begins to act crazy and tells the Duchess that she only did it because she wants to give the Emperor a present, since the Emperor likes red blood. She acts innocent and asks the Duchess if she did anything wrong. Yep, this girl is crazy. Scarlet then acts obsessively in love while sharing with him that she wants to be hugged by the Emperor while covered in red flowers, and that she and the Emperor are true mates. Scarlet also adds that she wants to ask for a strand of hair from the Emperor every time they meet, which Isar finds scary and creepy, thus asking Scarlet if she wants to die. Next, as the carriage arrives, a servant opens the door, shocked that Lady Scarlet steps on his head and hurriedly runs away. Looking back, he assists the Duchess and confusingly asks her where Isar is. The Duchess shakes her head and remembers that Scarlet had stopped the Duke from slapping her. Then, she threatens him by saying that treating her as the Emperor's fiancé is wrong and throws Isar off the ride. She looks like a mad woman. The next day, a letter is written to the Emperor stating they should meet again since they unexpectedly parted ways at the party. Scarlet suddenly remembers that the Emperor and his fiancée are obliged to meet several times per month and will be recorded, which Scarlet feels like an open relationship. Scarlet rereads her letter and thinks she doesn't want to be too irritating, so she lets the Emperor decide on their first date. Since she feels that it is crucial to show her craziness in moderation and consistently show them, this will be the perfect plan to fool a suspicious tyrant. After sending the letter, Scarlet contemplated whether the schedule would come as expected. A reply to the letter, then yesterday's acts had a weak impact. Scarlet then calls Lucy and asks for her account book, the property left by Scarlet's deceased mother, the former Duchess. Scarlet realizes that she cannot become independent and flee with the meager amount of money she has, so she comes up with a plan to turn it into a fortune. Then she recalls that the safe zone, also known as the Cradle, is a desolate area where magic is useless, but it's the fairies' hideout. Scarlet then contemplates that if the fairies recognize her, she can secure excellent resources and the fairies' stone most expensive treasure. Meanwhile, the Emperor receives Scarlet's letter and decides to proceed with the engagement despite Scarlet's foolishness because she comes from a wealthy family with undeniable influence. The Emperor's thoughts are cut off when his aide reports to him about the investigation on Scarlet Armen. His aide tells him that Scarlet is a woman with a vicious and ruthless heart, and asks the Emperor if she is really in a suitable position to be an empress. Hearing the report, the Emperor thinks it is challenging to investigate her since they only investigated through external activities. He also feels that Scarlet is not entirely out of her mind and that he will see the real Scarlet, not Scarlet Armen. Later, Scarlet receives her schedule and the Emperor's monthly dates and thinks of a plan to show the Emperor her spicy, crazy side. The Emperor sits prettily in the chair when Count Clover visits him the following day and delivers him a stack of reports to read. The Emperor then calls Count Lumen, the intelligence chief, and tells him that the report is messed up, which Count Lumen denies. He's about to cry, so the Emperor abruptly cuts the communication. Hearing this, Count Clover knows that he'll be working overtime. Truly enough, the Emperor then orders him to investigate the Armen family and Scarlet Armen. Count Clover notices that it's been a week since Scarlet has been chosen as the fiancé. He then remembers that Armen's ancestors are the founders of the family of Calior and Rizabel, who are called heroes who stand shoulder to shoulder, and that the heroic ancestors left behind for the Armen family are something even the tyrant's aides find not easy to break through. Count Clover informs the Emperor that since the Emperor and Scarlet need to date twice a month, it will be helpful to gather information if Count Clover is nearby. Remembering Scarlet, the Emperor absent-mindedly thinks he wants to see her face again. Thus, the Emperor instructs Count Clover to deliver a letter to Scarlet Armen about his schedule personally. Still not getting over how the Emperor acted, Count Clover absent-mindedly walks and imagines the Emperor sitting on Scarlet's lap and accusing Scarlet of doing something to His Majesty. Just a little bit of observation, but Count Clover imagining the tyrant in Scarlet's lap is really crazy and creepy. Later that day, Scarlet receives the letter of her date with the Emperor the next day. The letter states that she's invited to the Imperial Palace the very next day with a side note that the Emperor will come on his feet, which she does not understand. After reading the letter, Scarlet decides to prepare gifts that the tyrant dislikes since she cannot visit someone's home empty-handed. She decides to buy grapefruit and white flowers to give to the Emperor, and these are the two things the tyrant hates. Upon arriving at the palace, Count Clover informs Scarlet that she's very late, but since it is the Emperor's last schedule, he has time to spare. Count Clover then leads the way to where the Emperor is. As they are walking, Count Clover tells Scarlet that the magic lights are usually turned on, but today, the Emperor instructed that most of them be turned off. Upon arriving at the place, Scarlet realizes it's a prison cell. A prison date? How romantic. As they arrive at the place, Scarlet then asks Count Clover if the place is a prison, which Count Clover confirms, and jokingly tells Scarlet that her eyesight is good since it is her first time visiting the palace and she knows it well. Scarlet then excitedly replies to Count Clover, who himself is quite familiar with the layout of their location. Scarlet then creepily asks Count Clover if he thinks she does not know him. In the original story, the aides of the tyrants are also described in detail. It is said that these aides are both tasked as observers of the tyrant's private life, though they also play the role of teasing the tyrant. As Scarlet slowly walks towards Count Clover feels uneasy. When Count Clover tries to back up, Water drops on his face, and when Scarlet sees this, she then remembers that Count Clover is famous for being neat. Therefore, she enjoys the little incident that just occurred. Scarlet then wipes a rag on the face of Count Clover and acts concerned while asking if he's okay. She then thinks that the rag she brings is so helpful in teasing Count Clover. However, Scarlet teasing poor Count Clover is cut off by the Emperor asking what they're doing. Scarlet then gracefully greets the Emperor as he walks closer to them. Next, Scarlet notices that the Emperor is looking at the basket she's carrying, so she cheerfully informs the Emperor that Scarlet brought a gift since she thinks it's not polite to visit a home empty-handed. Scarlet then happily shows the Emperor the white flower as one of her gifts and asks him if it's pretty. She also happily shows the Emperor the grapefruit she brings as a gift to him. Scarlet also highlighted that she also likes grapefruit and white flowers. Count Clover is shocked and scared for Scarlet's life as he sees the gift Scarlet brings to the Emperor. Scarlet continues to share with them that the grapefruit gift is the grapefruit of that Garrus territory and is a unique item carried by the White Lizard. She then added that this must be very tasty. The Emperor then seriously calls Count Clover's name and instructs him to leave since he looks tired. Shocked, Count Clover tries to remind the Emperor of their original plan, but stops himself. The Emperor then informs Count Clover that he himself will be the one to accompany Lady Scarlet. As they are walking, Scarlet notices that it's very quiet since Count Clover left. Scarlet asks the Emperor why he instructs the people to turn off the lights outside, and she jokingly tells the Emperor that it is because she feels that she makes the Emperor feel better than ever. The Emperor just seriously tells Scarlet that he is currently at work, and some things cannot be recorded on the schedule. Seeing the Emperor's expression, Scarlet asks the Emperor if he wants her to work with his work, to which the Emperor agrees. The Emperor then tells Scarlet he wants her to meet and talk to somebody. When the doors open, Scarlet sees a creepy and scary hall full of people inside a prison cell. While they walk past the prisoners, somebody calls Scarlet, which stops her from walking. The prisoners then catch Scarlet's hands, and Scarlet has difficulty getting out of the grasp. Upon looking at the situation, the Emperor then sliced the prisoner's hand. Shocked by the happening, Scarlet suddenly realizes that, unlike the original story, the Emperor's hand has blood. Scarlet realizes Charles is an undeniable psychopath. He claims that the Chancellor has more work than anticipated. He then reaches out to her, saying they have a long way to go and need to hurry. What's his real game here? The young lady has to meet a man who lives far away. She's also puzzled as to why he's so joyful and considers slapping him in the face. However, at a certain point, a voice is heard saying that they're most likely length and one of them is rapidly approaching. The following moment, an old lady emerges from the terrifying jail. The insane granny admits that she too adores Scarlet. Scarlet, however, does not grasp what she's saying. On the other side, Charles recalls a prophet named Sage who endured 19 months in silent captivity. It was said to protect the elderly man from gangsters. The elderly woman's predictions regarding the Armens couldn't be dismissed. In exchange, the grandma was asked to deliver the prophecy. She then stated that there are two scenarios that are most likely to occur. However, the journey would lead to devastation. She also stated that only Armen has the power to foresee feelings. This prophecy has us all on the edge of our seats. Charles believes he may use the woman to find out what he needs. Scarlet asks the grandma if she knows how to communicate with fairies and wonders if they're real. The grandmother responds that the fairies are only seen to those with a pure heart. Scarlet wraps her fingers around Charles's arm and confesses that she has a weakness for His Majesty. The grandma is astounded by what she sees in front of her and asks Scarlet whether they are together, to which Scarlet affirms. Whoa, she really just confesses she has a weakness for His Majesty and confirms they're together? Talk about upfront! When the grandma extends her arms to Scarlet, Charles points a sword at her. He urges Scarlet to be cautious, since this elderly woman is a criminal who manipulates people's minds. Scarlet apologizes to him for asking about the fairies, which was a mistake. However, he does not react to her madness and believes that she lacks a sense of reality. Scarlet becomes agitated because Charles continues to ignore her and wonders why he is suddenly holding her hand. Without hesitation, he shows the man sitting in the cell. He tells Scarlet to ask the woman anything. The woman in the cell asks how His Majesty is feeling, which he replies positively. As soon as Scarlet sees the lady, she knows that it is the true Sage's eye. The lady tells Scarlet that she needs to make a choice because the change has already happened. At one point, Charles asks Sage and interrupts them. Scarlet then notices that he is gently holding her hands. She then suggests letting her in, and he agrees. However, Scarlet loses her balance, which makes the Sage laugh. After Charles and Scarlet's date, Clover enters Charles's study room and says that Scarlet has just gone home. Then Clover asks His Majesty about what happened in the dungeon when he and Scarlet went. Clover also asks if Fran has mentioned anything, which he confirms. He also says that Fran has decided to speak when she sees Scarlet. Charles says that the prophecy sounded exactly like what was fixed was once broken. Upon hearing it, Clover is amazed at what Fran's vague prophecy sounded like. He only hopes that Scarlet is alright, but Charles assures him that she's alright. In her mansion, Scarlet seems tired and decides to go to bed. However, Isar approaches her, whom she didn't expect to show up. He asks his sister why she's still awake at midnight, but Scarlet doesn't like how her brother approaches her. He tells her how glad that she's finally back. Still, Scarlet doesn't understand her brother, so she asks him to mind his own business. He stands over to her and says that he knows that she almost died. Isar also adds that she mistakenly thinks that he's not worrying about her. Tensions are just so high between these two siblings. When she looks up at him, she is shocked when she sees him crying. With that, she promises Isar that she will come home earlier and not let him worry about her. Clearly, he was agitated and his mood was terrible. Scarlet thanks Isar for worrying about her. After that, he wipes his tears and she assures him that everything will be all right. Then, Scarlet decides she has to go to bed and bid her goodbye to Isar. In her room, Scarlet realizes that she needs a lot of money, but she has to be in touch with the fairies someday. This girl is really obsessed with fairies. After a few days, Scarlet comes to the Imperial Bank and puts the money on the table in front of the bank employee. She also asks the employee to buy the land she needs. The employee tells her that given the amount that Scarlet is offered, she can buy 300 dumas of land. While she was talking with the bank employee, the people surrounding her were talking about her. They address her as Crazy Lady Armen. Despite all that, she remains with a smiling face. After going to the Imperial Bank, Scarlet walks through a beautiful garden. The sun's glare stretches the color of her beautiful trees. She remembers the book when Sherla meets the fairies, and they've been starving for 6 months. Wait, does she actually purchase the land because of the fairies? Scarlet believes that fairies are important beings who gave Sherla wings since she lacked powers. She also wonders if fairies enjoy apples. Scarlet will most likely purchase seed from the magical garden on her return trip. At the moment, Charles is walking with his assistant, who claims that the top of Bathory refuses to pay taxes. Apparently, it is related to the temple invasion. Charles requests to be left alone because everyone is going to die shortly. He also states that the man may bring him a sword and kill them all himself. What is Charles planning? Is he serious about this? The tension is rising and we're dying to know what happens next. Scarlet, on the other hand, hides under a tree to avoid Charles's detection. She is quite surprised that Charles went out for a walk. Charles's assistant informs him that he can wait a little longer and will order again. He also states that while he struggles with finding revenue, his pride will not be shattered. Despite what she has heard, Scarlet can't help but chuckle and make a sound. Naturally, Charles keenly takes note of the noise. Meanwhile, his assistant doesn't comprehend why Charles would do such a thing to underprivileged people. Scarlet emerges from behind the trees and hugs him. At one point, she almost falls, but Charles catches her. This is an intimate moment for both of them. Scarlet then understands that everything did not go as planned, and she still does not want to become closer to His Majesty and wants to end the engagement. Charles, on the other hand, believes she's acting like a child. She then finds he's attractive up close and can't control her emotions. Scarlet recognizes, however, that a brutal tyrant ruler cannot have a nice character. This is demonstrated by Charles himself, who asks Scarlet with a stern expression what she's doing in the region. She is terrified and uncomfortable right now. Meanwhile, the servant is confused as to why she emerged from the forest and found herself in the same location as His Majesty. He also believes that the Emperor was not in the mood due to the temple. The servant also believes that it would be a bad thing if the Emperor murdered his own wife, so the man decides to protect Scarlet from the Emperor's wicked rage. He tries to divert His Majesty by asking whether he's all right. He really is trying his best to protect Scarlet from his wrath. However, Charles only asks Scarlet if she wounded herself when she stumbled, which she didn't. Scarlet claims Charles is gorgeous, which makes him feel repulsed at times. Scarlet turns to His Majesty, asking what he's thinking. She also explains what she was doing on the land. She informs him that she's thinking of buying it. He's astonished by what she said and inquires if she has already decided to purchase the land. She smiles and shows how insane she is by saying that there are fairies roaming about the land. After hearing it, Charles recalls what the old granny told her in the cell. He has no idea how old Scarlet is if she believes in fairies. Regardless of her age, she insists on believing in fairies. Scarlet asks Charles if he can sell the lands at a lower price. However, when she looks at his hands, she notices he's wearing gloves. She quickly assumes that he's going to hit her. The following instant, Charles apologizes and turns to Scarlet, claiming that she is terrified of him. Regardless, he'll consider Scarlet's unexpected wishes. He also admits that it was late and resolves to return. She bids him goodbye with a caring tone in her voice. Scarlet arrives at her parents' estate and has no idea what just happened. She believes she broke all of her intentions. Scarlet also worries about why she did not say a proper goodbye. Scarlet recognizes that the Emperor is good to the lady he loves as well as others. Someone knocks on the door, which makes her wonder who may have come to see her. At first, she thinks that it's the Duke. She's also a little concerned because it's late. When she hears the voice that knocked on her door, she soon realizes that it is Isar. Scarlet is unsure if she should open the door, fearing that the Duke is with Isar. Isar gently unlocks the door, and she wonders why he is there at such an hour. Despite her disapproval of him entering her bedroom due to his forceful voice, he insists that he has something important to tell her. What could he possibly have to say that couldn't wait? Scarlet keeps giving excuses to stop him from coming in, which embarrasses Isar. She demands he be quiet to know if someone else is with him. He speaks calmly with a worried tone, assuring her that it will be fine if she doesn't open the door. Eventually, Scarlet decides to open the door and looks Isar in the eyes. She asks if he is sick, since it's unusual for him to be worried about entering her room. He claims that it was nothing and then bids her goodbye. Scarlet falls asleep with a diary in her hands where she writes down her elaborate revenge plans. She then realizes why they are hard to execute. Meanwhile, Charles stares out the window, contemplating Scarlet's fearlessness towards him. He thinks this makes her feel free with him, unlike others who are afraid. An old woman once warned that the imperial family and the empire would be destroyed if things remained unchanged. The prophecy stated that for the empire's prosperity and eternal existence, the prince's fate was to die, making it necessary to eliminate the consequences. When everyone believed the prophecies and rejected the prince, Charles took up the sword to survive, valuing his life. Despite this, he still thought Scarlet was special and unafraid of him. He recalls an incident earlier when she showed no fear and even asked to buy the land at a cheaper price. He then decides to sell the land to her, thinking she might bring something valuable to the table. The next day, Scarlet receives a document issued by the Empire. After a long conversation with the servant, she signs the documents and advises them to wait for the imperial family's approval. Once Charles's servant leaves, she instructs her maid to prepare the carriage as she is planning to visit the bank regarding the land purchase. While on the carriage ride, she eats delicious food and reflects on her trust in Charles, realizing she wouldn't get the land at half price. Scarlet stops in a small town near the Emperor's palace and searches for the map she has. Feeling a bit lost, she hears a strange female voice. Turning around, she is surprised to see a green-haired girl asking if she is lost. Scarlet finally remembers that the girl was terrified of her. The girl also recalls how Scarlet had tried to show everyone her wild side. Scarlet addresses her as green hair, but the girl corrects her, saying that she has golden green hair. Scarlet places a hand on her chest and says that if the girl is done with her accusations, she will leave. However, the girl asks her to wait and introduces herself as Peridot Fleta. Scarlet asks if she wants to be friends, but makes it clear that she's not interested. Fleta ominously tells Scarlet that she won't live long and will die in the end. Scarlet finds this remark extremely rude and declares she doesn't want to see her again. Their conversation is interrupted by Charles's aide. Meanwhile, Charles reads a report about an incident involving Scarlet. He realizes she's not as simple as he once thought because her demeanor changes around him. The servant cannot tell if Charles is smiling as he teases him about Scarlet, but Charles advises him to take his job seriously. Charles then asks where Scarlet is, and the servant replies that she's in a safe zone. Deciding to check on her, Charles heads out. Charles is taking an active interest in her whereabouts, so what's he planning? Scarlet is excited about some magic seeds and is glad to see Charles. When he asks what she's doing, she replies that she's planting fruit trees as gifts for the fairies. Their conversation falls silent, and Scarlet looks up at Charles. He silently looks back at her, lifting the corners of his lips slightly. Scarlet is struck by Charles's beautiful face, feeling awkward and unsure of what to say. She starts to ask about the land, clarifying that it now belongs to her and that she's probably paying taxes. Charles tells her she can visit the land as much as she wants, and upon her return, they can rewrite the contract. Instead of paying taxes, he will sell the land to her at half the price. Scarlet is very surprised and looks at him hopefully. He then mentions there is a condition, which she knows implies there's more to his generous offer, but she agrees. Charles is surprised by Scarlet's excitement over his offer to sell the land at half price. She is thrilled, knowing this deal will help her easily break off her engagement. Charles schedules their next meeting to finalize the contract, and they bid their goodbyes. A few days later at the Armen mansion, Scarlet's servant is shocked by her actions. She is creating a magic insect to sell at a lower price, which leaves an unpleasant message when stepped on. The Duke steps on one, which accuses him of having an unpleasant personality. Furious, he shouts Scarlet's name. Scarlet sure knows how to stir up trouble. Scarlet, happy to be getting her revenge, is informed by her maid that the Duke is coming her way. Not in the mood to meet him, she orders the carriage to be prepared and tells her maid to get ready. Meanwhile, the butler inquires about the Duke's well-being. The Duke, now angry, demands to know Scarlet's whereabouts. The old man refuses to comply, insisting the Duke should see a doctor first. The Duke's furious shouts echo through the mansion as he berates the butler for not finding Scarlet, calling him useless. The Duke's temper tantrum is something to behold. Scarlet really knows how to cause a ruckus without even being present. Years ago, the first head of the Armen family, Armen, was adored by everyone. His life was cut short after finding his perfect love, and he eventually died. His lover, chosen by the Baron instead of becoming the Duchess Amelia, became the first Duchess. Her life was far from perfect, as undisclosed events led to her eventual death. Returning to the present, the butler reluctantly searches for Scarlet on the Duke's orders. He reflects on how the Duke has become more tyrannical over time. When he finds Scarlet, he warns her that she shouldn't be at the mansion. She tells him she plans to go to town, despite knowing she shouldn't. Scarlet then comes up with a clever idea and whispers her plan to tease the Duke. Seeing no other option, the butler agrees to go along with her idea. Meanwhile, Charles, pondering in his room, is amazed by Scarlet's seemingly harmless motives. He knows she wants to break off their engagement and has been acting crazily, far exceeding his expectations. Despite this, he finds her intriguing and decides to play along for a while. He believes their engagement will end regardless of her wishes and figures it wouldn't hurt to keep her alive and watch her antics for another month. The day for a meal with the elders has finally arrived. When Scarlet gets to the venue, she's thrilled to see Isar looking different than usual, especially his hair. He asks why she's late, and she replies that she stayed up late last night. The venue is heavily decorated and ready to receive guests. This party is one of the major events of the duchy, where all the family members gather even if guests don't come. The duchy sure knows how to throw a party. But seriously, a major event where everyone gathers? What's the real purpose here? As Isar and Scarlet continue their conversation in the hallway, a lady shouts at them, telling them to hurry as the elders will arrive in a few minutes. Scarlet is furious at the lady's attitude, but Isar warns her not to retaliate since she's an orphan. Scarlet can't stand the lady's harsh words and tells her to behave appropriately for her age. Just then, one of the duchesses arrives at the venue and advises them not to block the hallway and to go inside. Good timing, Duchess. Clearing the hallway tension. Classic move. But what's next for you, Scarlet? While they're eating, Isar can't stop thinking about what happened earlier. He asks Scarlet if she's all right and apologizes. However, she tells him not to worry, as it's nothing. Scarlet asks about the elders, to which Isar replies that their personalities are no joke. He explains that the relationship between the elders and the Armen family is complex. The elders are an alliance that protects the borders of the monsters, but their relationship with the family isn't good. However, they still respect the former duke and his lover. Protecting the borders of the monsters? This sounds intense! After hearing this, Scarlet reflects that all these people, including Isar, are destined to die at the Tyrant's hand. She snaps back to reality when Isar calls her, mentioning that they'll be having a California meeting. She is shocked when he places his hand above hers, but Isar is dazed by her expression. Despite her surprise, she thinks there might be a way to save Isar because he is important to her. Scarlet ponders ways to save the ones she cares about the most, namely maid Lucy and her half-brother Isar. Even though it hasn't been long since she arrived in this world, she at least wishes for them to survive. Isar wakes her up from her daydreaming, calling her attention to the family meeting that they're supposed to attend. The siblings walk towards the meeting room. Scarlet goes back to her pondering while walking, her thoughts now on a possible protector who will have an excuse to protect her maid and brother. The head butler greets them outside as they get ready to enter the meeting room. Once inside, the siblings introduce themselves to the elders, who look at them pensively. Scarlet scans the room. Her eyes land on two figures she immediately recognizes. an elderly white-haired man and a black-haired woman. Exactly the people she's looking for to save Lucy and Isar. In the novel, these two elders were the ones who gave Scarlet the funds to bully Sherla. They gave her the money simply because Scarlet looked so much like her mother that they were weak for her charm, ignoring the fact that it was used to harass someone. Wow, A+ relatives. Their assistance to her was their demise, but this time it will be different since she's not the same Scarlet. She excitedly looks at them, thinking of the prospect of having them owe her instead. The family meeting commences and the elders present their grievances to the Duke. They require money to purchase Cabell, a mushroom that repels monsters from the forest of monsters at their borders. A recent goblin extermination has led to the emergence of a minotaur at the borders, spurring the need to get more Cabell. It's exactly like it was in the novel. Curious, Scarlet raises her hand to ask the elders the reason for the monsters. The elder woman admits that they too did not know, as it's too risky to enter the forbidden forest of monsters. The elders' answer makes Scarlet realize why they were deemed incompetent by the Tyrant in the novel. The real reason for the monsters' presence was due to a certain flower that turns monsters rabid. No matter the elders' attempts to ward them with Cabell, the monsters persisted. Until the Tyrant's discovery of the flower in the forest, which resulted in the forest's restoration and the execution of the Armen elders. Scarlet knows that when the Minotaur is gone, a wyvern will replace it. She wants to find a solution to how to save her family. Duke Armen inconsiderately declines the elders' request as Scarlet hypes herself up for what's to come. Since she remembers the Tyrant's actions from reading the novel, she can use it to help the elders solve their issues. Isar nudges her, anxiously looking at her. He tells her that she's making him nervous with whatever is in her head, as she looks too giddy and excited. Considering her reputation, I would be too, buddy. Sometime after the meeting, Scarlet calls out to the elders who are having their belongings deposited at their temporary lodgings at the Armen estate. Lady and Sir Adrian apprehensively greet her back, as if expecting to be made fun of after the Duke's outright refusal to provide them funds for the Cabell mushrooms. Instead, Scarlet presents them with her inherited valuables from her mother with a seemingly pure intent to assist them. She also wishes them the best for their proposal so that they can get more funds. Lady Brian assures her that she will not give up easily, intending to stay until she gets what they came for. The elders graciously accept Scarlet's offer, promising to pay her back in return. Content with the level of kindness she's currently showing, Scarlet opts to tell them at a later time about solving their issue. When the time is right, she will tell them about the things she wants in return: protection for Lucy and Isar. Later that day, Lucy hands Scarlet a letter from the Imperial Palace. Fully expecting a rejection letter from the Tyrant, she disappointingly reads an official schedule letter, which tells her to reply as soon as possible. She crumples the letter in her hand. At the Imperial Palace, reveling in his perfectly normal workday, he stands looking out the window, wishing for days to be the same as today. Don't we all? The thought disappears as a knight approaches him, announcing the arrival of Lady Armen. The lady is now waving at him on the walkway leading up to his office. He pours the lady's tea before facing her nervously. Lady Scarlet Armen expresses her dismay at his disregard for her sudden arrival and claims they may have something going on between each other ever since the day they met. The Prime Minister stares at her, mouth agape, as she continues to feed him assumed scenarios of his supposed admiration of her in her head. He stands, ready to run, and vehemently denies the sudden allegations. His exclamation is so loud that it alerts the servants rooms away. Scarlet amplifies her teasing of the Prime Minister. For maximum effect, she blushes as she asks him unabashedly if he likes her. Oh, she is acting crazy, stirring up trouble. He just stands there, not responding, staring blankly at her. I think he needs to sit down and just breathe. She wants to cause a disaster since her crazy doesn't work much on the Tyrant, and she has devised another way. Her first victim is Prime Minister Clover. Still going on her teasing about his unproven love for her, Prime Minister Clover has had enough of it. He exclaims his confusion, but Scarlet is unrelenting. His confusion is just fueling her further. Clover is slightly swayed somehow, now internalizing his behavior and how he's perceived by others. The most intelligent Prime Minister in the Empire is caught up in the nonsense just because he's single and has never been in a relationship. He blushes, ignorant of what love may feel like, and he pleads for Scarlet to stop. As he does, she mentions her engagement with the Emperor, which snaps him out of his confusion. The image of the Emperor's menacing look struck an immediate fear in the poor man's heart. Scarlet notices her victim getting quiet, looking like he's about to cry. She apologizes rashly for her harsh actions, but goes on, teasing him after realizing she has to keep the act going. She flashes him one last look, maxing out her acting skills on one last sincere apology, leaving him with his mouth agape and even more confused. On the way home, Scarlet reflects on her actions. It was more troublesome than she had desired. She just hopes he'll spread what happened with the other aides so that they will hate her, which will lead the Tyrant Emperor to save face and reject her. Isn't that dangerous, Scarlet? What if he kills you? Back at the Prime Minister's office, Count Lumen calls out to Clover, who is still seated in front of the now cold tea. He suddenly asks the Count what love would feel like. He enumerates his symptoms, which makes it seem like he's just sick, more so than in love. He cuts off the conversation, preferring to keep what happened earlier to himself. The next morning at the Armen Mansion Annex, Scarlet and her maid Lucy stand outside the Elder's lodgings. The door is closed and the occupants are absent, dismaying Scarlet as she had Lucy make cookies for them. They do not have to wait there standing outside the mansion, as Lady Adrian calls out to Scarlet. The elder woman reveals that she was in a meeting for her future Cabell purchase. Scarlet enthusiastically expresses her interest in the mushroom, and Lady Adrian indulges her by procuring a handful of Cabells and showing them out to the younger woman. As Lady Adrian is telling her about the mushroom's ability to temporarily paralyze devils, Scarlet suddenly loses control of her body. She sways on her feet before falling to the ground, to Lucy's utter horror. Oh no! What could this mean? Is she evil? Head pounding, she remembers talking to Lady Adrian before finding herself transported to a forest. It looks familiar to her, although it's her first time there. She knows she's in the forest of monsters. She hears movement from behind her, and she finds herself looking at Scarlet. She recognizes the red hair immediately as the Tyrant's lover in the novel. The woman talks to herself, mentioning a tool to replace Cabell. Scarlet knows that in the original work, Scarlet did find a replacement for Cabell, but with the aid of another person. She follows Scarlet in the forest awkwardly, eager to see the tool she's looking for. After waking for a bit, Scarlet raises her lamp in front of her. She calls it the Geppetto slime, a gray matter with tiny eyes and a droopy mouth. It looks so derpy and cute. Geppetto slime is harmless to humans, but is a predator that feeds on any ferocious monster in the forest. This is the tool to replace Cabell. Scarlet smiles to herself as she makes sure to remember the slime's location to find it next time. Her vision suddenly fades as she hears someone call her name, pleading for her to wake up. She wakes up in her bed. The room seems to be full of worried looks. Isar, the elders, and Lucy all look extremely concerned. Isar scolds her for being a troublemaker. It's not her fault, though. He tells her to take things easy and consider going somewhere to recover if the mansion is uncomfortable for her. His suggestion gives her an idea to use this as an excuse to go to the elder's estate. She looks at Lady Adrian mischievously, but is immediately refused. The older woman tells her of the numerous dangers that await her at their estate if she goes. Cunningly, Scarlet is quick to propose checking the state of affairs of their estate for the Duke to convince the elder. Seeing the benefit that they will get from her visit to their property, Lady Adrian beams at her approvingly. Scarlet will have to ask her father for approval too. But Isar has other ideas. Seeing the exchange between the ladies, he expresses his disapproval. Even if their father approves, he finds it concerning for his sister to go alone to a dangerous place. Scarlet assures her half-brother that she'll be safe as she'll not be going alone. Who? He'll find out soon. He finishes reading a letter and asks his Prime Minister to clear up his schedule for the next 2 weeks. He has an appointment with the young lady. The Armens stand outside their mansion amongst busy servants, preparing for Scarlet's and the Elder's departure. The Duke himself is there as well, senselessly reprimanding his children while waiting for the Emperor's arrival. I think you should calm yourself down first, Duke. Duke Armen remarks on the Emperor's late arrival, smugly going on about Caglior respecting the Armen family. Isar explains to Scarlet that he must be acting proudly since it's the first time the Emperor will come to their estate. The royal family Caglior and the Armen family have an old relationship spanning generations where the Cagliors rule and the Armens protect the borders of the empire. But Scarlet knows that the relationship eventually ends after the Armen family fails to do their duty. Isar asks her why she wants to travel with the Emperor. She simply tells him that she's his fiancé and that it's only normal. But deep inside, she knows the real reason. She's actually hoping the 3-day journey stuck together will make the Emperor sick of her ultimate goal. She also tells him about their father's easy approval of her vacation, leaving the details to herself. When she went to him, he was acting suspiciously with a crystal ball. She told him her reason and destination, which prompted him to assume that she was going there to look into the position of successor. It surprised her. He seemed wary of her at the time with the mention of succession. He asked her about the whereabouts of a seal, their family seal, Scarlet. He had been pestering her about it again and again. The seal was proof of family ownership, something the Duke doesn't have. She wonders why he's looking for it again, making her curious as well, and what form the seal has taken since it changes every time it's passed down. As she's looking up at a banner with her family crest absentmindedly, Isar suddenly calls her attention, telling her to bow to the Emperor. The Duke excitedly approaches the Emperor. They exchange greetings. After the formality, the Duke proceeds to talk about his family to the Emperor. Isar and Scarlet notice the Emperor just standing there, seemingly having no intention of listening to the Duke. Isar notices two of the Emperor's knights eyeing Scarlet. She knows the two of them. The blonde-haired knight, Count Lumen, is the head of the intelligence department, and the one with the eye patch is the commander of the knights. Despite knowing their identities, she greets them formally for their first meeting. Isar notices that the knights seem to admire her, judging by their soft smiles and blushing cheeks. Charles looms from behind her, shocking her. He holds her arms, preventing her from falling. It has been a long time since they last met, and his sudden greeting has her feeling uncharacteristically nervous. He calls out to Count Lumen, who procures a bouquet of red roses for her. She blushes as he tells her that the flowers remind him of her and that they resemble her head. The people around them stop, shocked. Look at the Duke, his mouth's open! The two knights laugh in the background. The Emperor's little prank seems to be proof of his being in love. The elders invite her to get on their old shabby carriage. Scarlet can't help but feel disappointed, making her want to travel with the Emperor in his carriage. She looks back at him talking to his knights, busy and seemingly not caring for her. Isar, ever so worried, reminds her of their conversation from the other day. They had discussed her relationship with the Emperor. It disturbed him that the man engaged to his sister was known to be cruel. Even if it did not matter to her, he still couldn't help it. Scarlet understood that her brother was afraid that the Emperor might hurt her physically, and it made her care for Isar more. He was the only one ever to actually care for her. He gave her a magic tool, a smooth, light-colored stone used for sending messages. He can contact her as long as it's with her, and she can do the same. He would be there if anything were to happen to her. Oh, isn't he thoughtful? Scarlet, magic tool in hand, walks towards the carriage while reminding him about his task while she's gone. He's to water her plants in the safe zone for her, and he gladly accepts. They bid each other farewell. It hasn't been long since their departure from the Armen estate, but they have made numerous stops on the way due to prevalent bandit attacks. Count Lumen, who is riding the elder's carriage with Scarlet, complains. It puzzles Scarlet why this man is traveling with her instead of the Emperor. The man just keeps acting like he doesn't know anything and complaining. The elders seated across from her express their shame for the situation since the attacks started to happen in their territory. Scarlet assures them that it wasn't their fault since they were traveling with an imperial carriage. It must be the reason for the attacks. They are fortunate to be traveling with the knights, and she trusts that the bandits are no match for the Emperor. Suddenly, one of the knights shouts to let everyone know a bandit is running away, and the knights scramble to action once again. Scarlet notices an ominous figure in the corner of her eye on the side of the carriage. He seems to know her, even calling her name as he raises his knife at her. The man doesn't notice a hand reaching for the back of his head. The next thing he knows, his head is through the carriage door. It surprises her. Standing over an unconscious bandit is Charles, looking cool and collected even after the violence he just inflicted. He checks on her, and she thanks him for saving her. She notices the Emperor's white horse in the background, coming to the conclusion that he traveled on his horse. Considering he just saved her, he's literally a man on a white horse. Sweet! He opens the broken carriage door and offers a hand as he invites her to ride with him in his carriage together. In the imperial carriage, sitting across from the Emperor, Scarlet stares at him in disbelief as he informs her of the reason for the attacks. Her! They were looking for her. He tells her about the assassins of Pawn. Hailing from another kingdom that has produced numerous assassins, the ones that attacked seemed like amateurs, but he was still wary as they were able to use a technique unique to Pawn. He asks her if there's anyone who wants to kill her. The first image that pops into her head is of her father, the Duke. Charles warns her that they will attack again and that it will not be a big deal. Scarlet misunderstands, thinking that he must not care much for her and that it's not going to be a big deal. She starts to panic. He cuts her off, reassuring her that she does not have to worry. No danger will come to her when she's with him. Oh, really now? Sometime later, the caravan stops for a rest. Scarlet is greeted by the commander of the night right away. He apologizes to her about the earlier incident. Charles stands menacingly behind her, intimidating his knight. She lets the knight off easily, as she didn't really get hurt. She even felt safe enough to sleep in the imperial carriage. Surprisingly, the tyrant mirrors her kindness to the knight and lets him off easy, much to the knight's relief. Count Lumen calls away the emperor for urgent business. Watching him walk away, Scarlet thinks of a way to thank him for her safety. At dinner, Scarlet clinks a glass with her fork to call everyone's attention around the campfire. The knights, gathered around the fire, are still eating their dinner. The elders look at her suspiciously, and they all anticipate whatever she's going to do. She thanks the knights for their safe arrival, and in return, she offers them a gift for their effort. The gift? Beautiful Serenade. She scans the area, making sure Charles can see her before starting. Their eyes meet for a second, and she's off. This girl's up to something. Charlie, watch out! Scarlet's singing makes the knights uncomfortable. One of them points out that she's actually not that good. Some of them have stopped in their tracks, shocked and aghast. Scarlet, they just had dinner. Some of them already threw up. What a waste of food! She continues her singing with closed eyes, uncaring of any reaction from the audience. Focused on her song, she sincerely hopes that it will shock the tyrant. She opens her eyes, taking a peek at the man. He's reacting to it all right, but not the way she expected. Instead, she's the one who's shocked. He's smiling! So guys, what do you think of this story so far? Please subscribe and turn on notifications for updates on this and all our other stories, so you can be the first to find out when they're out. Thank you so much for your support. See you in the next one!